All right, a lot of details to soak in here, and joining me once again this hour to discuss is trial attorney Afi Patterson and criminal defense attorney and Florida State Representative Michael Gottlieb. The plaintiff is showing these videos which show Maya in a very happy state and working towards recovery again. What is the strategy here to show the jury, Afi?
I think it's to show that she's aware of her condition and she is aware of when she is truly in pain and that she did not want to sit in her pain. She made every effort to be able to walk again. And I love that she was detailing that what she needed to do to be able to walk again, like lift herself up using her upper body. You know, you saw her swimming, you saw her with her brother. She talked about a friend coming to visit. So it's showing that she did not want to be in a persistent state of pain, and that maybe, you know, it's more evidence that there's no malingering here. You know, she's not putting on for her mother. So I think they did a really good job. She talked about the dystonia, and that's something that I've really paid attention to. It's when your muscles, especially in her feet, when they involuntarily flex. And I was tracking that. I was looking at her feet, noticing it every time. So I think they're doing a really good job.
Michael, how key was it, though, that Maya testified that the ketamine worked for her and all the other treatments that she used?
I think it's key to their case, especially with the hospital making this allegation that there's sort of a Munchausen type of thing going on. But it's also important that she said her parents were willing to accept other forms of treatment that weren't necessarily medical, such as going into the oxygen-enriched environment. They were willing to do anything and everything, and they were working together as a happy family would, and doing what you would expect parents to do. So I think it's a very key component to her winning her case.
All right, yeah, and she continues to not crack at all, very calm during all of her testimony. All right, we're going to take another quick break here. We're going to get to Maya in a moment, but when we come back, we're going to focus on another case in Florida. That's the YNW Melly case. That's coming up in just a moment. Stay with us. You're watching Law and Crime.
This is a hot flash. This is a hot flash. But this is a not flash. There.
With witnesses on Mr. Demon's case. So during the questioning, at a certain point in a lull, Detective Moretti made a decision that I was unaware of at the time to serve the search warrant.
That wasn't in your thought process at all that was happening during this time?
It wasn't, but I didn't tell him not to. We just didn't discuss it. It wasn't something that came up. I approved the search warrant. I assumed he would serve it that night, the next day. I really hadn't thought about it.
So this all definitely raised some eyebrows as the great legal duo of Afi Patterson and Michael Gottlieb are back with me. Afi, I know you are following this case very closely. I mean, how damning is it if the lead investigator did ask a sheriff to lie about being present while executing a search warrant outside his jurisdiction?
So that was my big question, and we found out last week when the judge said that he thought it was definitely material. If you have a lead investigator who is, his testimony is going to be weighed heavily at trial. If he asks somebody to lie, anybody to lie in a case, that's a material issue. And it should have definitely been turned over. So I think that's significant, and we know that, you know, the judge believes it's significant.
And Michael, as a criminal defense attorney, could this be something that could lead the case to be dismissed? Because initially that's what the defense is asking for. I mean, do you think there's a chance that this could happen?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when there's a grave injustice, such as an officer lying and then that lie being suppressed by the state attorney's office, it goes to the integrity of the case. It goes to the integrity of the judicial system. And that's a time when a judge needs to interact and say, you know, this was, so he's already found it material. We've already had a hung jury mistrial wherein this would have perhaps damaged the credibility of the lead officer. So I think the judge would be well-founded to say this is such an egregious error, and not even an error, but something that was intentional on behalf of the state, that I'm going to dismiss this case.
Now, by the way, the assistant state attorney went into more detail while she testified, so let's listen to that right now.
And this case,
They leave the room.
What happens next?
Once they leave the room, Deputy Gorell, who I didn't know his name, he came into the room, and Detective Moretti looked at him and said, "You need to."
For your thing?
Deputy Moretti said Detective Moretti said to Deputy Morell, "You need to say you were here when I served that search warrant." And it was kind of like an awkward moment. Someone described it just kind of getting punched twice in the head. So there's a search warrant that gets served, and I'm like, what's going on? And then the next thing, he's asking this deputy to lie for him. And again, I'm like this is like, I'm in the twilight, so I'm like, this can't really be happening. Deputy Gorell didn't say anything of any substance. I think he said, "Is there anything I'm needed for anymore?" or something like that. I don't remember if he said anything at all. It was just a very awkward moment after Detective Moretti said that to him.
And you specifically remember what was said?
I vividly remember what was said, yes.
So after that was said and after Gorell leaves, do you say anything to Moretti?
No, I don't say anything to Moretti. I leave the room, I'm done with the statement. As far as I'm concerned, I'm done investigating this case.
Why?
Because I don't work with detectives that solicit lies.
Okay. What did you do then?
I reported it immediately on that day.
So, Afi, after hearing all that, what do you expect will happen going forward with this case? I mean, what are your predictions here?
I thought that was it was really powerful when she said, "I don't work with detectives who solicit lies." I think that I don't think the judge is going to dismiss the indictment. I just don't. He's got a double homicide. He's got a double homicide issue on his hands, and I think that while it definitely was. It was material. Was it enough to exonerate him? I look at the original Brady case, and that issue there, it was sort of similar. You had two men, Brady and his associate. They were tried for a homicide. It happened. It arose out of a robbery, and the issue there was another defendant had already confessed in a case, but the prosecution didn't turn that information over to Brady. And that was egregious because that could have changed the face of Brady's case. So also, I want to point out that Michelle Bradley said that Moretti was vigorously cross-examined for 3 days. So I think that's also an argument that's going to be made. So I do think that we're going to trial, that the judge is not going to dismiss these charges.
Michael, what are your thoughts? I mean, what do you think is more likely to happen, for this case to be dismissed or for the prosecution's office to be recused?
So I think it's interesting because what you have to realize is if the officer is lying and found to be lying and it's not a joke, and the search warrant was illegally executed, then there's a suppression issue and a potential loss of evidence. So I think that, the judge needs to figure all of that out because the scope of the gravity of the lie is pretty significant. I think the judge should take the Broward State Attorney's Office off the case because they've now got a conflict between what one of their prosecutors knew and immediately told about, what other prosecutors may or may not have known and didn't tell about, and there's an appearance of impropriety there. So I should, at the least, the judge should take the prosecutor's office off the case.
Definitely a lot for the judge to think about here. All right, great analysis, guys. We're going to have to take another quick break here.